Wait. Hold on. Just going to break in right here and say that Mike and I have been sitting here talking about the tension experience. Lots of things have developed online in the forums around tension experience.
We spent a couple hours talking about it, and we realized that we still have more to talk about as far as other things we've done. So what we're going to do is we're going to split this podcast up into two. The first part will be strictly tension experience only. And then a few days later, we'll have the second half where we talk about everything else that we've done that is not tension experience related.
Let's get into it.
No.
Welcome to the My Haunt Life podcast.
Hello. We'd like to welcome you to My Haunt Life podcast episode number 12. I'm Russell.
And I'm Mike.
Today on our episode, we have got some details about a couple of different truly wonderful, exciting, extremely immersive experiences.
And, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
Well, I do. But before we get into those amazing immersive experiences, I want to talk about another amazing immersive experience. A few weeks ago when we recorded the other podcast, it was your birthday. And I gave you a birthday puzzle to figure out. And I was just wondering if you could update everyone on how that's going.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I would like to start by stating that ciphers are not my strong point. Seriously, they are not my strong point. I look at a cipher and my brain just doesn't even see what to do. So I think you can tell where this is going. I've been working on it on and off for about 12 hours now that I've dedicated to this cipher, and I have still not cracked it. However, I have learned a great deal about ciphers. I have done a lot of reading, a lot of research. There are ciphers that I had never heard of. So I've actually enjoyed the experience. And again, I will say this, I sincerely appreciate you challenging me with something that you freaking knew I would have a hard time with.
I didn't know.
Oh, hell, you didn't.
I just thought it would be fun and something different.
You know that I rarely use the phrase I suck at something, but I suck at ciphers. And you knew that.
Do you want a new clue? Oh, well, first of all, he has not taken a clue yet. He's been trying to do this on his own. So, I mean, props to you for doing that.
Well, thank you. Look, you challenged me, and I took this as very, very seriously as a challenge. So, no, I refuse a clue.
Okay.
But soon, I will probably crumble.
Okay.
So,
fair enough.
You had to bring that up. Okay.
Of course. Well, I think it's a duty to the people listening because we talked about it.
Yeah.
I think they want to know.
Okay.
And I'm assuming some of them want to help.
No, I want to crack this, and if I want a clue, after all the work that I've done, I will ask for something very subtle and I'll probably give you all of the crap. I literally have I think 10 pages right over there of things that I have experimented with, but I'm still working on it, and I will not accept a clue yet.
The fact that I'm enjoying this way too much makes me such a jerk. Why are you friends with me?
All right, you have been a little bit of a jerk about the cipher thing. You really have. You have mocked me now going on 2 years about my cipher confusions. So I still respect the fact that you are so good at them.
Just by comparison.
Ow. Okay, moving on.
And comedy hour is over.
Moving on.
The tension experience. For those of you who are new to the tension experience is a experience that a lot of people are going through. It's not LA based. There are people in Canada, there are people in Minnesota, people in Texas that are all participating, as well as people in Los Angeles. Los Angeles has had a couple of in-person events, and we'll get to the ones we went to this weekend. But we wanted to give you a little background on what we're talking about in case you are a new listener and don't know what the tension experience is. It's a hell of a ride, so enjoy what you're about to hear. A lot has happened since the last podcast, and I know we say that in every podcast that we talk about them, but it's true. It never fails. I was on my way home from recording the last podcast, and on my way home, in traffic, I get a call from an unknown number. So I'm freaking out because I have no paper, no pens, and I don't want to crash and die. And so I answer the phone, and it is a man asking me if they could have an hour of my time. And of course, yes, 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 of course. And what they wanted me to do is to write a few words about the OOA, just a few sentences, no more than, say, 11 or 12. So just a small paragraph. Immediately, I was like, okay, that means I bet a newsletter is coming. They want me to write for the newsletter. Awesome. So I wrote my paragraph and I sent it to them, and nothing. No confirmation that they received it, and I was worried that they didn't get it in time. Meanwhile, on the forums the next day, a new member showed up and started drama with Gatekeeper 4. Benny, whose name on the forums was Benny O. Sampson, which some of you might recognize those initials, BOS, came and just started criticizing the OOA and Gatekeeper 4, and Gatekeeper 4 actually responded to him. He said things like, the OOA will fail, and we're going to roast marshmallows as we watch what you built burn. And then Gatekeeper 4 seems to know who he is, and she replied, Benny, that's the name you pick? Benny, not Dragon Slayer, King of Thunder, or Master Everhard? Ha ha ha. No love you, Mark. And then she gave his IP address from Salt Lake City. Probably never ever did. She is chosen and she is true. Your efforts here are as effectual as the useless flesh between your legs. And then Benny wrote back, lure them in with a game. Even you are better than this. What do you think they will do when they find out what this really is? She was everything I had. You are monsters. You will all pay for this. And then Benny wrote back, I denounce all my past comments. OOA is the bee's knees. They are super duper awesome. The Institute is A-okay. Benny Mark. So we think that he got hacked or that someone took over his account because that was quite a change. And then he wrote back again with F you. Stop deleting messages and threads. You try to sell the truth but push lies. Leave this thread and this message, or are you scared? You corrupt and you steal, and you destroy and you took her. She is there somewhere, and all your effing walls and locks and Omega Council will never stop us. Our numbers are growing. You cannot stop us. Then at that point, the thread was deleted. So what the heck is going on?
It was quite shocking. And again, it was one of those things that had happened so fast and it disappeared so quickly. It just added so much intrigue to the unfolding drama at that point.
Also on that same day, while all of this was going on, our old friends, and I mean that literally, well, not literally because she's not old, but old as in she's been our friend for a bit. Kimberly, a.k.a. Electric Hippo, unfortunately, we had lost her to Sentinel. She publicly denounced the OOA all while this was going on, and now she's working with Sentinel, and I don't know if she's okay. I don't know what's going on. So if you're listening to this, Kim, we hope you're okay, and nothing bad is happening to you. Then another thing that happened, I got 2 phone calls on that day. There was a little bit of drama with a fake Twitter account. There was someone trying to pretend he was part of this experience and was not. And at one point, I had made a joke to Sean, the Gilded, on the forums saying that, did you know that if you at someone on Twitter and your account is private, they won't see it unless they're your friend? Making a joke because this person's Twitter account was private and he added a few people on the forums that we know. And within minutes, I got a call from the OOA basically asking me what Twitter account am I talking about and things like that. And so I was a little bit worried and shocked because I didn't know if this was part of it and if they were just playing into it. But I sent them the link, and then they called me back saying that this person behind the Twitter account is not one of them yet, and that this is all a smokescreen for what's about to happen. So right there, what is going on?
At this point, everything is so confusing.
Yeah. And that Twitter account, long story short, we found out it was not part of it, and it has been deleted.
And apparently it's never been made clear who that was and what exactly they were trying to accomplish. So I think it just added a whole bunch of confusion to the mess and didn't forward anything.
Right, which is why I think they wanted to deal with it swiftly because of
They
that.
certainly did.
And good on them.
And isn't it impressive and slightly creepy that they were on it that fast?
Oh, yeah.
So was it the next day that the newsletter appeared?
2 days later, on the 11th.
Yeah, and that actually was another very cool moment.
Yes, because all of my doubts about Sunday and them receiving what I wrote, they were relieved when I opened that newsletter, and on the upper right-hand side, I see Scribe in the Archive of Knowledge by Michael Fontaine. That's me. They published my paragraph to them, and Gatekeeper 4 hand wrote on it that, listen up, my boy drops truth bombs. So I'm not trying to brag or anything, but apparently I'm Gatekeeper 4's boy. So you probably don't want to mess with me. Just saying.
Wait, do you have a crush on Gatekeeper 4?
This is professional, Russell.
All right.
She is one of my coworkers.
Sure.
You don't poop where you scribe.
Oh, okay. So yeah, what Mike meant by saying that there was a handwritten note, when they sent the newsletter out, it actually came appearing as almost a copy of a newsletter where someone had handwritten comments and blocked out things with Sharpie black marker to send messages of their own. So they'd taken the newsletter and they basically had defaced it. Including, there's a list of upcoming events on one corner of the newsletter, and it seems that Gatekeeper 4 sort of crossed out all the events and put things like, oh, check Facebook, check Instagram, check Twitter, refresh Facebook, pretend to have an actual human interaction, which feeds into the constant message we're getting about how technology is too much in our lives. And that's almost a mocking tone, and to be totally honest, a very valid point.
Gatekeeper 4 mocking? No. You're crazy.
So, and you know what? That little section of that newsletter I find very endearing because, I am sometimes quite often mocked about how I am not constantly on Facebook enough by certain friends. And like, yes, I agree with Gatekeeper 4. She's got my back.
And I would just like to point out that he did not look right at me when he said that. So it's not me.
No, it was not Mike. You mocked me for many other reasons, but that is not one of them. So, and also, look, I didn't have the encounter with the detective. You did. So do you want to comment on the markings on the detective's photo on the newsletter?
Yeah, so when we first got involved, you might remember Russell had a meeting with Jenna. Mm-hmm. And on the same day, I had a meeting with a private investigator named Robert Jones. Now, in this newsletter, at the very top, there's a game of hangman. And the letters that are there are B, N, and S. But it spells, if you put two and two together, it spells Bob Jones. And there's a picture of a hangman. At the bottom, there's a picture of Robert Jones. And even though some things are crossed out, you can still kind of read it. But it basically says that Robert Jones is a betrayer of truth and he's been exposed. His disloyalty and lies will be dealt with extreme prejudice. It's just interesting that he is being dealt with because when we spoke, he in a roundabout way threatened me. And it's interesting that he's now a target and he's being dealt with. So I'm pretty sure the OOA has my back because he's going around and threatening people and taking videos of them. But it would be interesting to see if anything else happens or if he's just going to disappear. Because if he just disappears, that is pretty scary.
And we are going into territory in a few minutes, I'm sure, where his name will come up again. And that involves the most recent events, but we aren't quite there yet. But it's interesting that his storyline, his path, is definitely being kept track of and definitely is made reference to in later events.
And then the other thing in the newsletter, and once again, this is posted on Facebook. You can check it out. But there are two people, Hank Schofield and Mia Keller, and they are the descended ones. Don't know what that means. We think they had something to do or they spoke out against the OOA, and now they are on the OOA's poop list.
The one other thing about the newsletter, the actual text of the newsletter that we should point to is, again, more of that mocking tone that Gatekeeper 4 does so incredibly well. And I want to just read one little section. It's addressed, obviously, to anyone reading the newsletter, and there's a paragraph which begins, "Am I cool? Do you think I'm pretty and smart? Am I fitting in and I have answers and that's why you are looking over here? Your adoration makes me feel alive because until you see me, I don't exist, do we?" And I think, again, I just find it fascinating to keep going to that culture that we live in of people drawing attention to themselves constantly in some form of self-justification, self-evaluation, self-promotion. I just find it fascinating that they keep going back to that theme, and the newsletter covers that. And she seems to be really wanting to shoot down this habit that our culture now has of everything must be public and everything must be immediate. And more power to her as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, a couple of days after the newsletter, Mike, wasn't there... that was the day that the new video came from Gatekeeper 4.
Right, and it's the 4th video that they released. Insert cue for the music.
Really? You want the music?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you
Wait,
the
hold on.
music.
Let me do it. Let me do this again. And it's the 4th video that they released.
Are you happy now?
Yes, thank you.
So yeah, this was actually quite fascinating because there's lots of little hidden text messages, and she comes on strong.
Yeah, and in this video, we just mentioned that our friend Kim denounced the OA. In this video, her picture actually comes up in one of the hidden scenes, or in one of the hidden frames, and says, "Electric Hippo, meet our banhammer." So I guess that's it. She's banned. She's on Team Sentinel now, and it's kind of sad because she was a good egg.
Well, there's no reference to Sentinel there.
No, but I mean, if you denounce the OA, there's only one place to go.
Okay, all right, fine.
To hell. Then there was another message later on in that video, and I was freaking out because this is what it said. "Sean, we know your secrets, but continue to play your game. Further alienate yourself. They will not follow you." I thought it was Sean, the Gilded, from the forums. So I was freaking out because he's one of our crew, and I was sending him messages, and he woke up and he's like, "What are you talking about?" And I sent him the video, and he's like, "Holy crap, I don't know. What did I do?" Turns out it wasn't him. It was Sean Decker. And Sean Decker will come into play a little bit later. But I'm glad it wasn't Sean the Gilded.
And it's interesting that both of those two names that you just mentioned, Sean and Kim, both appear in later events very strongly.
Mm-hmm. So there was a couple other things in that video. One of the main things is what happens next, 5/29/16, prepare, which was this weekend. And we will get to that because holy crap. They warned us in this video from a couple weeks ago, and we didn't heed their warning, and we went into this event. Yes, that was a squee.
Yeah. Yeah, we were a bit blindsided this weekend, I will admit.
So that was the video. Then on the forums, a few days after that, Light to Dark made an appearance. Light to Dark is a forum member. He's part of the Institute, we believe, and he gives us very, very cryptic advice and tries to point us in the right direction. And he gives us clues, and he talks to some of us, and that's it. You know, he was very active about maybe a month and a half ago, and then disappeared off the face of the earth. He made a return and was telling people some clues and giving them advice, and randomly all of the links on the site stopped working. So you would click about and it would go to a 404 page, which if you're web illiterate, Russell, it means it goes to a page not found.
Hey,
it means basically the page doesn't exist. And everything was like that except for the forums, and I think to sign up. But everything else, 404 page.
On that same day, an Instagram photo was posted, which was very mysterious. It was an extreme close-up of basically somebody's eye.
I wish we could do sound effects from Wayne's World right now.
So it was obviously a blown-up image, and attached to the image was a message, "You have our attention." It obviously belonged to someone who had been rattling some cages or something. But it seemed a little ominous. Well, a friend of ours, Jake, actually figured out that it was him. And it was a photo that had been posted a very long time ago on social media.
And are you ready for this? Know how many years ago it was posted?
Oh, no, actually, I think I missed that.
4.
Wow. Well, you see, that's the one, my birthday message. They went back a few years to get that, too. So they are definitely plowing
But was it
through.
4 years
No.
because Gatekeeper 4 did it?
Wow, I missed that.
Oh, and you didn't solve the puzzle yet? Shocking.
Yeesh. So Jake's photo appeared, and Jake put it together that it was actually him. So, and what Jake had been doing is, Jake literally from a place of just wanting to know more, just wanting to find out more things about people. I don't think he was deliberately trying to instigate anything. But he was definitely on the forum, like challenging people, wanting to know more about where they stood and what their beliefs were. And also, Jake has always been the first one to question whether or not an account has been fake or not. Because that's something that goes on the forums, is people start wondering if an account is being used to somehow press an agenda. And Jake had deliberately called a few people out, like, what's your point? What's your point? And I wonder if that rattled some cages, maybe not. I'm not sure.
Oh, it definitely did, because the Instagram post, I didn't take it as negative. It just basically said, we're watching you.
Yeah, I took it the same way.
So I took that more as of, we want to see where this is going. And
I think
just so you know, we've got our eye on you. So
I think that's exactly what the message was. Were there any ramifications after that?
Not that I'm aware of. We saw him this weekend. You're looking mighty sharp, Jake, in your suit.
He seemed fine.
Yeah. Other than that, I think it was more of a, we notice what you're doing. So good job, Jake. You did rattle cages.
So the next day, Sean Decker suddenly tweets directly at me. He uses Twitter to post a photo of a sheep and basically states, public enemy number 1 says, don't believe the OOA lies. This kind of took me by surprise, actually, because to be honest, I know Sean in social circles because he's a writer, producer, journalist. He's a man who wears many hats, and I travel in some of those same circles, run into him at film festivals for years, don't know him well, but certainly would consider him a friendly guy and certainly would consider us casual friends. So he suddenly calls me out on Twitter with this accusation that I'm somehow, believing lies by the OOA. And he did it in response to the last event when we had placed the red hoods placed over our heads. I had actually tweeted out a photo of me in that condition with the hood over my head, and I said, they took my sight, but they allowed me to see something else, something more, was what I was indicating. And he responded to that, like, don't believe the lies you're being told. So, I responded back and said, hey, if you think I'm being led astray, that's part of life. Sometimes we get led astray by people. And, I wish you well on your journey. So it turned into this back and forth where we were called, anyone who's following the OOA was called sheeple. He basically said, remember Bob Jones, who is the detective that was mentioned earlier, who was basically, his face was crossed out, and he was mentioned in the newsletter that we had just talked about. So suddenly, Sean Decker is calling me out and pointing to things, and I had responded to him that I'd never met Mr. Jones and that I had heard of him, but I couldn't offer any opinion on that situation. So he responded, I did, and then the OOA hung him, have fun. So basically, Sean was trying to either warn me or tell me that the OOA is not, an upright organization and not being honest. I didn't know how to react to this. So I think my final tweet was, something along the lines of, we're all sheeple in some area of our lives. How do you choose the pasture from which you graze? And that sort of ended it.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
You should be writing pop songs. Seriously.
So
You're wasting your words on Twitter, man. You could be a billionaire, writing for Justin Bieber or something.
No.
Girl, you go out out to pasture.
Oh, thank you very much. So, well, I'll drop my new single in about a month, probably. So, We Are Sheeple.
Yes. Oh my God. Or you could be the new Weird Al and do like a Depeche Mode cover, like sheeple are sheeple, so how could it be?
Wow.
Oh, this is going so bad for me right now.
So, do that again, please.
Nope.
So, I want a longer section of that. I'm just like, that may come back to haunt you, sir.
Oh, it totally will. It's okay.
So, moving on, as we digress. Moving on. That happened, but literally in the middle of this Twitter stuff happening, Mike had mentioned a moment ago that we had been warned, or not warned, we had been told that there was this event on the 29th. And in the newsletter, there was, as Gatekeeper 4 had crossed out, but there was underneath some of her scribbling, there was a reference to May 28th and May 29th as a ceremony, the ringing of the bell ceremony. As this Twitter thing was unfolding, in the middle of it, I received a call from the OOA. And it happened somewhere after the first couple of tweets had been exchanged. And this very, all I can say is bland, automated female voice. You know, it was very much a robocall sort of thing. You know, I answered and they said, Russell, are you ready to continue on your path? And I said, yes. And they said, are you available on Saturday, June 28th, between 1 and 4? And I said, yes. And there was a pause, and I heard, excellent. On the evening of the 27th, you will receive directions. And they hung up. So that was my invitation. But it was odd because I know that other invitations had started to go out at that point, but other invitations were for the 29th. And I think I was the first person that I'd heard had gotten an invitation for something on the 28th.
Yeah, when you told me that, I immediately started joking with you. Like, you're going to get recruited to be Sentinel.
Yeah.
which didn't stop for the next 2 weeks.
Yes, that's, yeah, yeah. So I got to admit that it did strike me as odd that phone call happened inviting me to a different day than other people I'd known had been invited to in the middle of the conversation with Sean Decker on Twitter. So it was like, it unnerved me a bit. You know, I was like, wait a minute, that seems odd. But I figured if it was a large event that people were going to be, half of us would get invited to Saturday and half of us would get invited to Sunday. That's the way I thought that was going to unfold.
A couple of days after your call, I received a very strange call. When I saw the unknown number, knowing that invites were going out, I was thinking, awesome, this is my invite, hooray. It wasn't that at all. It was a female voice. It was not Gatekeeper 4, but I'm trying to remember the gist of it. It basically said that what's coming next is going to be very dark, or that the next few weeks are going to be very dark, and we are going to be needed to lead out of the chaos. Then they said, I apologize for what's about to happen, and I'm sorry, and they hung up. So I had no idea what was going on. I kind of took that as, oh, maybe they're apologizing. They don't have room for me at the next event. Like, you know, that's a bum out, but that's fine. And, you know, it's all part of my path. And so I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's going to come into play. But after this weekend, it makes me wonder if that's what they're talking to. And of course, we are going to get to that.
Like you shared with me that you had received an ominous phone call. And you and I have been joking about, I don't know how to get into this. You know, I've been joking about like the effect that this can have and like the paranoia and whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the night that I told you that I had had a nightmare. But I didn't tell you the whole nightmare. I had two of them. I had two nightmares 2 nights in a row. And by the way, I have a very active nightmare life. I like my nightmare life.
Is that going to be the next podcast and website? My nightmare life.
Let's unpack a few things, shall we? No, definitely do not want to do that. But no, I just find it humorous that as the tension was starting to ratchet up early on. And granted, like, I don't want to go into it, but like I was under a lot of job stress and there was like lots of stuff was going on in my world. So I called, you know, in one of the phone calls that Mike and I had, I knew that he'd received some ominous phone call but that's all I knew. And I'd had a nightmare and I told Mike, I said, well, I had this weird dream. And the dream for me was, it was a reference to the questionnaire. And at the very end of the questionnaire, in the initial questionnaire that you have to fill out when you first sign up on the Tension Experience websites, you have to submit this questionnaire. And one of the very last questions was like, what's on your mind right now? And I'm not going to say specifically what I wrote, but I had this image of like someone in a very vulnerable place in their life. That's what I was like, this is the image in my head. And I think I said an image of a man standing here, you know, and I was referring to myself, definitely referring to myself, that I saw myself not knowing what I was getting into. Well, that was the nightmare. Like literally, it was just like this weird, and the location of the nightmare was the location of that second event where we were hooded and led to a basement. That was the location of the nightmare. So, but the next night I had almost the same dream, except it was so ominous and it was so dark, and it was, I can't say anything happened differently except for one aspect of it. The first dream I was alone. The second dream I was not. So I told you that, you know, like I made it's like because I was freaking losing sleep, man. I was getting like 2 or 3 hours a night because of just the frustration and tension and stuff that was going on in my world. So the second dream, I was not alone. So I'm standing in that location and I just sense that it was this ominous presence behind me. And it took me a moment, but Mike, it was you, man.
What?
Yeah, I am not kidding. It was you. And I have never, ever thought of you in an ominous way.
Yeah, usually it's just purely sexual.
Oh, you bastard. So, no. No. But it was such an odd, because look, I'm alone and vulnerable in this unknown environment, etc. And there was this presence off to my left side, and it just like this feeling of like, oh my God, that's Mike. Like, why does this feel so ominous? And I just find it odd that my brain went there as this started to escalate tension wise.
Well, I mean, pun intended.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things, and I feel like it's definitely gotten to you, is like they keep saying there's someone in your life that is close to you.
Well, I think that's exactly what it is, because I've said before that those statements that they have made are so vague, but I'm filling in the blanks.
Right.
And I filled the blank in with you. It was very weird.
That is weird. Wow.
So I know you have a devious smile because we've used it in advertising campaigns for the haunt that I work with.
No, it's just odd that this is affecting, because it's totally blurring the line of real life and reality.
Yeah, it has in a couple of areas, certainly.
And the fact that this is happening, it's scary. Like this is what's really scary, because monsters and chainsaws and zombies and is no match for stuff in your mind.
I don't know. It resonated very heavily throughout the next week. That's for sure. So, yeah, but I know you are my friend, and you know that I trust you. Holy crap, do I trust you?
Right. Thanks. Hopefully you still do after this.
Oh, you did. Jerk. Here I am pouring my heart out.
And I just got the cup and smashed it on the ground. Let me catch that.
Okay. Moving on, now that I've actually had a personal moment that I thought would have an effect on you, but no.
It did. I'm not good with things like this.
Feelings,
ever.
emotion.
Screw those things.
Human interaction.
What is that?
Yeah. Okay. So.
Well, I mean, here's emotions and human interaction. Then a couple days after that phone call for Russell, Overseer made a post on the forums. By the way, I just want to make it a point. There are people that only rely on Facebook. There are people that only rely on Twitter. There are people that only rely on Instagram for information. With this experience, you really need to be everywhere, because especially on the forums, because there are people there that you will never know about if you only focus on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. There are clues being given to people on the forums that are public. There are people sharing experiences on the forums. They're not sharing them on Facebook so much. There's certain information you will only see in the forums, so I highly suggest you check out the forums and get in the conversation, because then you can see things like what I'm about to explain. So, Overseer made a post, and he's pretty high up in the OA, we believe. And the post was basically about people that are talking in private about the experience, which I totally do. I'll be the first to admit that.
Oh, I think everyone involved in this is doing it.
Right. They're going to talk to their friends, be like, okay, this just happened. What do you think? What I got from that post and how I read it was he was basically talking crap about all the people that do that. So in my mind, I read that and I was like, oh, hell no. And I wrote a reply sticking up for myself and sticking up for my friends, because I felt it was an attack on us. And I called them out on a bunch of things. And I just kept thinking, is like, you want us to build a community. We are building this community, but now you're telling us to not talk in private with the community that we have built. And so because of the contradictions I felt were said in that post, I called them out on a few contradictions of their own. And I was fully ready to be banned. I was fully ready for this experience to end. I needed to say my piece, and I needed to stick up for my friends. Luckily, that didn't happen. I was able to say my piece, and they got back to me and said that that post was not meant for me and my friends. It was not meant for the people that are actively communicating. It was meant for other people. So that made me feel better. But I think it proves a point that to speak your mind, say what you feel. And even if it's negative, it's part of the experience and it's part of the path, because you can't change what you think. And one of the things I called out to them was perception. It's like, well, this is the perception. You can say all night and day that it's part of the plan, it's part of your path, but the way people perceive it, that's going to affect their own path. And I know that can go negatively or it can go positively based on the person, but it's something for everybody to keep in mind. What you see may not be what is really happening. So there are things going on behind the scenes. There are things happening that you don't know about and might not know about until it's your time to know about.
True. Perception is extremely important in this, whatever this is. And I want to compliment you, because I thought your response was incredibly well written and extremely to the point. And I think you expressed a concern that many of us immediately had. I mean, that post they made, the reaction was swift and negative among those of us who want to experience whatever this is. And you know, there are certain things that you know, if they go in certain directions, I'm out. You know, disrespect, like humiliation, anything like that. Mm-hmm. And that post bordered on going into that territory.
Right.
So that was, again, a contradiction, which you pointed out. And I think you did it extremely well. And I think it eased a lot of people's minds. The interchange from that first post to your response, because immediately the forums responded.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so it responded in a positive way. And also, I have to give credit to the tension experience. The fact that they cleaned up the little mess that had happened. The fact that they actually responded like, oh, wait a minute. Your point about perception. It's like, this is what the perception we were hoping for. Because I think it was a little bit of a misfire. And I don't think it was an intentional misfire.
Right. And the fact that they did it publicly.
Oh, yeah. And they did it fairly quickly, mm-hmm. which is good. You know, and look, the last podcast, I believe, you know, I described that, you know, something happened in one of the events that I think got misinterpreted. Right. And when I reached out to them, very quickly, they were on it. And it's like, no, wait a minute. Like, your honesty is refreshing. We appreciate what you said. It's like, this is where we want, you know, like, or we want you to know this. And the fact that they did that so quickly, and the fact that they handled your response the way they did, like, I got to give credit to them for that. I think it's a very, very good move, because there are some rough edges to this experience, and there have been some mishaps that have really turned some people off. And the fact that they seem to hope to want to smooth those edges over quickly is a very good sign.
Yeah, I totally agree. A couple hours later, Gatekeeper 4 made a post. And within that post, she made an announcement about two of our own moving forward. Those two are Melissa and Sean. Sean the Gilded, not Sean Decker, because he got banhammered. And so Sean is the Gilded on the forums. Melissa is M. Carrot on the forums. They were appointed as sentries of the council. So through all their hard work, they moved up in the ranks, and they have a role of leadership. And I want to congratulate them again on the podcast publicly. And good job, guys. You're amazing.
Yeah, I'd actually like to throw my congratulations in as well. And also, I'd like to thank both of those people, because, the hectic, busy life that I lead, both of those people have been guides and been helpful with information and been supportive of me catching up when I get far behind. And I honestly believe that's part of why they were given the positions they were given. Like, they're both really cool people. And very smart, by the way, too.
Oh, yeah. Love you guys.
Love ya.
So then a couple days later, there was a post on Instagram. And the post on Instagram was a bunch of Polaroid pictures. Those pictures were taken from our first consultations back in February at this point.
Yes.
It's crazy to think that it's 4 months now that we've been in this. Like, it's insane. But in the center of the picture was my photo. And it had Mind on it, which had to do with a question I was asked, and I was circled. There were people around me, like Neil. He had an X through him. Tal had an X through him. Jake was in there. Sean Decker. There's a bunch of people that are in this experience. And it's funny because someone commented, "Why are there no women in it?" And that was something I had noticed and thought.
Oh, wow. I missed that comment somehow.
Yeah.
I didn't. That's interesting. I had not registered that.
And the funny thing is I joked about it to myself. I was like, oh my God, it's all guys. Like, I wonder if there's going to be someone making a comment about being no women. And sure enough, someone did. And the funny thing is Debbie said the same thing to me, like, privately. And
that's
she was just like,
interesting.
hey, there's no women in this picture. So it's just funny.
And you know what I
noticing
just
that.
registered from that?
What?
At the recent event this weekend, which we'll discuss in a few minutes, there is one thing that happened where the men and the women were very obviously separated in a certain way. That's interesting. Yeah. I think we might be reading way too much into this, though.
Or maybe not. Nothing is random.
Wow. Okay, moving on.
Yeah. Then the next day, this is so exciting for me because the one, the only, the mighty Gatekeeper 4 called me. She called me, of all people. And from everything that I've heard, the gatekeepers are not the ones that are calling people. And the fact that she called me is pretty awesome. So the phone call was a little bit hard to hear just because I was outside. There was traffic going. I was actually taking a break from work. And I was walking with my friend, which is Chris from Sunspots Comics, which you should check out if you're into comics. I've mentioned him before. We work together, and usually we'll take our breaks together. So we just took a walk, just chatting about things, and the call came. And it was so funny because his reaction to my reaction, after the phone call ended, he was just like, dude, you look like a little kid like that just lit up and saw he got a bike for his birthday or something. And it's like, that's how I felt. I kind of felt like that feeling you get when Mickey Mouse calls you when you're a little kid. Because it was like, oh my God, it's Gatekeeper 4. She called me. And but basically,
so you were walking with Chris and like taking a break from work, and you were actually talking about the tension experience?
Yes.
And they called you while you were talking about it?
Yes. So I think at the last event, they might have put something in my phone or something because, I mean, that's too coincidental.
Because you know what I'm thinking of.
Yep.
Yeah. So basically, that exact same thing happened the next day, I believe, wasn't it?
us.
Yeah, as like Mike and I were talking on the phone the next day, and I got a call as Mike and I were talking about the tension experience. But no, please continue on with your Gatekeeper 4 story.
So like I said, it was hard to hear. I did hear some things, but the biggest thing was, and I posted this on the forums, but she sounds like a supervillain. And I haven't been able to really say it to many people, but what happened was she said hello and, is this Mike? And I was like, yes. And she said, do you know who this is? And I'm going to try to sound like her so you can understand why it was so exciting and why I thought she was a supervillain.
Go on.
So, okay. Do you know who this is? And I was like, is this Gatekeeper 4? And because I was really excited and that's how I sounded. And then this is her. Like, I go by many names. You can call me 4. Like, and I lost my mind because like I'm holding the phone and I'm looking at Chris and like I have these saucers for eyes and I'm like, oh my God. And she sounds so evil, but like in a Catwoman kind of evil where she's not really evil. And it was just incredible. But basically we spoke, it was maybe like a minute long and I, like I said, I couldn't really hear much, but about 10 minutes later or so, she posted on the forums that she enjoyed our call and that I'll have words ready and that I know what she's talking about. So number one, she confirmed that it was her that I was talking to, which awesome. It wasn't like Russell trying to pretend or anything.
I would never do that, by the way.
And two, that I had no idea what she was talking about. So I sent her a message and I said, yes, it was a pleasant surprise, but I have not been told anything. Perhaps I'll hear something soon. And then she replied and basically said that you need to speak on Sunday, a few words to rally the troops and congratulate Sean and Melissa. And I was like, okay. So basically I have to write a speech now and immediately started freaking out. Then later that night, she sent me a couple of other private messages, and I still don't know how to take them because one of them, they were sent about 5 minutes apart, and one of them said, have they approached you in public, meaning not at one of the events? The next one was, have you been approached yet? Surely you know what I speak of. I know not what the hell you speak of. And I don't know what that means. And it worries me because now I feel like something is going to happen in public and I might get abducted or something. But I don't know because the thing is she uses they, not him or her or he or she, they. So what I think is maybe she's talking about Sentinel or BOS. I don't know. Like, I don't know like if anyone's going to approach me, or maybe she's just being her charming self and trying to put the paranoia in me. I don't know.
Well, and BOS, which stands for Brothers of Seraph, we don't know how strong they are. We don't know how many people there are.
Right.
So there could be an army there.
Yeah.
You could. Do you think it's a warning of danger?
I don't know because
it doesn't sound like it per se.
It doesn't. But at the same time, I don't know because, who knows? Maybe there's cracks in BOS and they're going back to them saying, hey, he's on their radar. He's going to get approached. And that's like, hey, have they talked to you yet? Because if they do, here's an AK-47 or something. I don't know. Or like watch your back or something like that.
Are you kidding? Gatekeeper 4 would completely carry an AK-47. Completely. That is so her. I
picture her like having a huge sledgehammer like Thor, and that's the banhammer, and she just swings it majestically like an eagle flying and takes people's heads and crushes them.
You have given this a little too much thought.
No way, dude. I think in comic book terms.
Okay. All right. Fine. I'm just saying that image came very clearly, very quickly.
Yeah. Because it's a great image.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. So, well, congratulations on getting the personal phone call. That's awesome. And it's very funny. and we'll explain in very briefly why I can say this. I agree completely with you in the fact that when she speaks to you, she speaks like a supervillain. It's pretty rad. It is.
Yeah.
And intimidated the hell out of me, I will say. But we'll get to that soon. So the next day, after Mike had received that interaction, I received a phone call at work. And this was Friday the 27th. So when I saw the no caller, ID, I figured that it was probably the information I was looking for because I had been invited to something on the 28th. So it was a very basic phone call. A male voice that said, "Are you available at 1:30 tomorrow?" And I said, yes. I would receive an address somewhere in the valley, and I must absolutely come alone. And I quickly asked, well, do I need to bring anything or prepare anything? And they said, no, bring nothing but your phone. We will email you in the morning. And I was very flustered because I was actually somehow expecting, an invitation to Sunday, even though they had said the 28th, but nobody else had gotten the invitation to the 28th. So I thought it might've been a mistake. So I kind of flustered. I said, wait, can I ask one question? I know there's this thing on you're saying tomorrow, but there's this thing on the 29th, and I know friends have got an invitation. And the male voice on the phone kind of got pissy with me and very ominously said, what has been prepared for you is much bigger and better than anything they can understand. And he hung up the phone. And seriously, I didn't mean to challenge. I was just flustered over the fact, the confusion that I seemed to be being isolated and everyone was getting these other invitations and I had only been told the 28th, and that had been building for a few days at that point. So I was really freaked out, and I didn't know what to think, because now at that point I only knew that they said I had to be alone, and they gave me a time for the next day. And as far as I know, I was the only one who got that invitation.
Yeah, you're the only one out of the people I knew, which is why I kept joking with you.
Yes, you did, though. Mike kept telling me that I was being recruited by the Sentinel, but I keep an open mind, and I didn't think that was happening. Mike is staring me down evilly right now. So later that night, I received an email with an address, and it was basically a parking lot of a grocery store, and my instructions were to show up and wait outside the store until all were present. So at least I knew that I wasn't going to be alone. So the next morning I got up and I ran some errands, and I found myself really, really tense and nervous. And 1 hour before the event, my phone rings, no caller ID, so I figure it's something about the event. I pick up the phone, and a voice identifies himself as Jonathan from the OOA and says, look, there's been a mix-up. We need to change the address of the meeting place. Everything else is the same. So the meeting time had been changed to 2 p.m. I verified that I got it. I got the new address. Very similar. And he actually said, hey, it's another grocery store parking lot. It's be there, wait on the curb. We'll be in touch. So, I show up there, and there's a couple of other people arriving at the same time I did. So basically, a total of 4 of us showed up for this event. And we waited. And one of us got a call before all of us had arrived. They were double checking to make sure we were all there. So when we were all there, suddenly a black SUV pulls up. A driver steps out. He says, "Hi, I'm your ride." And so my typical reaction to something like that, I introduced myself. "Hi, I'm Russell." So, and the driver was so cool, because the driver says, "My name is Arson." And at that moment, I just realized that I will never, ever be as cool as a person named Arson. That's such a cool name. So we get in the vehicle takes off, and then the next series of events that happens is just rapid fire. We're in the vehicle, and like I said, there was one person in the group that had arrived a couple minutes late, and they'd called to make sure we were all there. We weren't. They waited. They called back. So once we got in the vehicle and we're on the move, someone in the vehicle got a call. It's "Hey, where are you?" Okay, yeah. I heard them say, "Yes, we are all here. We're in the vehicle," and the phone was disconnected. Somebody else in the vehicle got a call, basically the same exchange. And a moment went by, and then my phone rang. And it was someone who was pretty perturbed and said, look, Russell, we gave you simple instructions. Why aren't you following the instructions in the email? Where are you? Like, we have people looking for you. Are you at the assigned address? We cannot find you. I said, no, we're in the vehicle. We're on the move. It's like all four of us arrived. We were called to verify, and we're in the vehicle on the way to the event. And I hear, oh, that is not the OOA. Something has gone wrong. Fuck! And literally, the phone disconnected.
Wow.
So I am basically been told that we have been picked up by someone else, not the OOA, and that whatever event that we were supposed to have, and the OOA had actually been kind of indicating to us on Facebook earlier that morning, there was an indication of lessons were going to be taught today. So the four of us weren't sure what was intended. If I was supposed to be taught a lesson, I couldn't figure out what I had done wrong that I needed to be taught a lesson, or even if that was a negative thing. Like maybe it wasn't a negative thing. They were going to show me something. I didn't know. But suddenly we had been told that this was not an OOA vehicle, and basically we were possibly being abducted. To which I said to the other people in the car, like, look, I need to tell you that phone call tells me we are not in an official OOA vehicle. So I say, at this point, basically, we're putting our trust in Arson. So somebody else in the car turns to Arson and says, Arson? OOA? And Arson, very, very deadpan, says, don't worry, I'm taking you to the right place. So we drive for, it was probably about 3 miles. And he pulls over to the side of the road and says, this is your location. This is where you're supposed to be. We get out and we are in front of a hotel. Now, right before we got to the location, my phone rang again. And I received the instruction of, when you get to the location, this is what we can do. Ask for Thomas Barrow. Do that. Ask for Thomas Barrow. And then the phone disconnected. So I led the group toward the lobby of the hotel, and on the way, standing right outside the lobby, were Sean Decker and Kimberly.
Detractors.
So I had convinced myself that this was not recruitment for the Sentinel or Brothers of Seraph. I at that point knew, like, okay, something is up. They don't engage us. They don't speak to us. I saw them. I was aware of them. We walked into the lobby, and I walked up to the receptionist and said, I believe we're looking for Thomas Barrow. The woman immediately handed me an envelope with my name on it. I stepped back away from the counter. I opened, and there was a letter, and it said, Russell, instruct those who you are with to leave their cell phones with the receptionist. Once she has your cell phones, she will give you a room key. Stay in the room until you are contacted, and it was signed BOS, Brothers of Seraph. So I read that to my counterparts, and we turned over the cell phones. I kept mine, and we were told, go to hotel room 227. Here's the room key.
227.
Mike?
That was a puzzle.
Yeah. Why are those numbers significant?
227 is from a puzzle that was given to us in a video. And if you figured out how to solve the puzzle, it led you to an image and some words from light to dark based on a book that was from another puzzle. Because this is not confusing at all.
Yeah. So actually, somewhere in those, I remember I never got one of those puzzles solved personally. So, but I recognize the numbers 227. I just in my brain I went, oh wait, like that wait, we've encountered that number before. So the reception says the elevator's behind you. We go up to room 227. We walk in. My first thought is it's been ransacked, but that's not the case. It's like there was an open suitcase. There were towels around. I looked in the bathroom. The bathroom had been used. There was washcloths and towels. It was a hotel room that people were staying in. That's very clear. The bed was unmade. It was very clear that somebody was staying in this hotel room. So the contact came from someone on the patio of the hotel room who came in and said we needed to come out to the patio. It was a man in a suit. And he led us over to some chairs under an umbrella. And he basically sat us down. He said, look, you've been called here for a reason. We don't think you're in too deep yet. We think there's still some hope. And we just want you to listen. We want you to listen carefully to what you're going to be told today, because you're going to have some decisions to make soon. And we just want you to know what needs to be known. Something along those lines. And then he turns and he says, Margaret, Tom, it's safe to come up. Right behind the patio was a staircase which had led down to the parking garage of the hotel. A man and a woman come up. They're obviously extremely upset, very distraught, very, very, very nervous. The gentleman in the suit leads them over, has them sit down, and basically we are told a story. The story that unfolds is that this is Margaret and Tom. Their daughter is named Addison. Addison was an aspiring actress who had come to the Los Angeles area and over a course of time had gotten into something, had found something that led her astray, somehow had gotten her into trouble. The parents didn't know, but they couldn't find her and they couldn't communicate with her. Addison, their daughter, was no longer responding to any communication at all. They did know she had been researching something called the OOA. They were aware that she had started to hang out in groups that seemed to have an extreme interest in puzzles and riddles, and they would get together in groups and they would work on these things to solve them. And there was this whole community with levels and hierarchies of ranks of people who were somehow involved in an organization, but Addison herself didn't quite totally understand what the organization was. The parents just didn't know where she was, and they didn't know what she was into. At the prompting of the man in the suit, they kept revealing certain specific informations. One of the things that came out was that Tom, the father, was extremely angry and frustrated at someone named Benny, who apparently was Addison's former boyfriend, and Tom thought maybe it was Benny who had corrupted Addison and gotten her into this whatever that had led her astray.
Which, for those with short-term memory, we just mentioned Benny at the beginning of the podcast, and he had the bit of drama on the forums with Gatekeeper 4.
The other things that were told that she's missing, there was a mention of the Church of Anak, that they somehow might have been tied to the OOA. It was almost a throwaway reference, and yet I recognized the name, actually thanks to Mike. Because when Mike had an interaction with the detective, Bob Jones had made reference to the Church of Anak and said,
they are making his life a living hell.
Also in this conversation, Tom and Margaret said, we'd hired this private investigator, and I'm sure that's who they were referring to.
It's all coming together. It's so rad.
When that detective was mentioned, Mike, I immediately spoke up and I said, what did he find? The gentleman in the suit then interjected, like, oh, that detective, he was worthless. He had an agenda of his own. He firmly believed that all of these people had an agenda of their own and were trying to destroy him. He felt that it was all about him. That's the gist of it. So Margaret made a comment about finding this gentleman in the suit who was their guide, was on their side in helping to find Addison again. The man in the suit suggested that Tom and Margaret expressed to us how they had the communication had broken down with their daughter. So Tom started to express that as the communication went on about the OOA and this group that she would get together with and work on puzzles, that they had started to use a device. And the device was a helmet, apparently. And Addison apparently actually told her parents that this helmet helped them communicate to each other and helped them work and solve the puzzles and riddles that they were engaged in.
Like Professor X and X-Men.
Well, yeah. And this actually really surprised me, because this is the first leap into sort of sci-fi science mixed with existential, mixed with almost supernatural overtones. This was a leap I did not see coming. This really, really surprised me. They were adamant that Addison had let them know that she was using this device. Tom became more and more agitated. Tom was convinced that somehow whatever this device was had affected the brainwaves of his daughter, that had somehow messed up his daughter's mind, that it was the helmet that was the device that was to blame for the final breakdown of communication and them losing touch with their own daughter. They were desperate. At this point, the man in the suit was trying to calm them down, and Margaret made a reference of how he had been such a supportive entity to them. and she was about to thank him, and he said, "Don't use my name." And she very, very gently said, "I'm so sorry, Joseph." Oh. And so she spilled that his name was Joseph to us. And Joseph was obviously agitated and disappointed that she had just done this. She burst into tears and basically fled. Tom basically begged us to help find the daughter. If we knew anything, that the reason we were contacted is we were apparently not too far in like other people are, that whatever this OOA thing is, that we were not as deep, and we might have, I don't know, expressed something, or for some reason they thought we were logical enough, distant enough to hear the story.
You didn't put the helmet on yet.
So, no.
Basically.
No, we hadn't put the helmet on yet. So Tom left, obviously distraught. Joseph, who we now know his name is, stayed afterwards, and he said, "Look, all we want is we want her story told. We want to find her. That is the important thing here. So any way you can, just tell the story. That's what you need to do. That's all we ask." So it's funny because Mike was joking with me earlier about this is a recruitment thing for the Brothers of Seraph, and that's not what it was. It was literally we met two parents who were distraught, who were looking for their daughter. That's all it was. They never tried to force an agenda on us. They never tried to like say that the OOA was bad even. They just said that they felt it was something not understood and that their daughter had gotten in deeper, and they don't know exactly what it is, but they thought it had a negative influence on their daughter. We were told to walk down the stairways and go through the parking lot, and that our event was done and we should go back to the main lobby. So we did. Sean Decker and Kimberly were still there waiting. So I, said hello. I've only met Kimberly once, I think, in person before this, and it was very, very briefly. So, I said hello to her, and I wasn't with them for a few seconds, and my phone rang. So I stepped back into the parking garage, and it was Tom. And Tom had called me, and he said, "Look, you need to go to the stairwell. There's something for you in the stairwell. Go." I want you to take it. I want you to have it with you. I want you to keep it. So immediately I ran in through the lobby, and there's some remodeling being done on this hotel because when we stepped out of the elevator, the rooms right near the elevator were remodeling. So things are not labeled. So I couldn't find the stairwell.
And you couldn't solve the birthday cipher yet?
Yeah. So literally, I'm in a hotel. I can't find the freaking stairwell. I'm trying to keep Tom on the phone, like, "Wait, hold on. I can't find the stairwell." And so I literally run back to the receptionist desk. I say, "Where are the stairs?" And they're like, "Oh, it's down the hallway. Take a right, take a left. It's past the restrooms. And then, oh, by the way, it's the unlabeled door." So, so it was unlabeled. So I literally run with my phone, and I enter the stairway, and on the stairs, there is a teddy bear with a piece of paper on it. And it's this, I don't know, what color would you call that?
Fuchsia?
Fuchsia. We're looking at it right now. It's staring at me. There was a teddy bear in the stairway, and Tom was still on the phone, and he said, "You need to take that. I want you to help me find my daughter. Take that, and if you see her, give it to her. Let her know that we still care. Please find my daughter, give that to her." And I opened the note, and it says, "Russell, this was hers. If you ever see her, please give it to her." And it's signed BOS, which is Brothers of Seraph. So obviously they're affiliated. Tom and Margaret are affiliated with the Brothers of Seraph. And I was given this teddy bear to give to Addison. At that point, I had no idea what that meant. I walked out, and a car had been called for us, and I didn't have any chance to talk with Kimberly and Decker. That's what we call Sean now because there's multiple Seans involved. We just call him Decker. So I got in the car, and they took us back. And we basically, the four of us kind of grabbed a bite to eat and sort of downloaded information to each other. During our conversation following, I received an email from the OOA that said, can you please tell us what exactly happened? It wasn't supposed to happen this way, and we want details from you. So I wrote them an email that said, look, like, we didn't intend to disrespect the OOA. We showed up as we were instructed. We had no reason to believe that Jonathan, who called us, identified himself as being OOA. We had no reason to doubt that phone call. So no disrespect to the OOA. This whole thing was hijacked right from under their noses, and we are really sorry, but this did happen. But I also said, look, those of us today, we have questions. We were given history. We were given backstory. We were told things that have to make us question. And I said, there are some people out there obviously uncomfortable with the narrative that the OOA is unfolding. This has left me with many questions. I'm not exactly sure what to do. And they immediately responded that they wanted to continue this conversation with me in person. And they said that what happened was probably just a bunch of lies from a bunch of people hired as actors. And that's all it was. But they wanted me to have a conversation with someone in person, and they sent me an invitation to the Sunday event, which is the very first time the Sunday event had been on my agenda. They had not indicated in any way that I would get an invitation to that. But after I wrote them back and explained what had happened, they invited me. The other members of that excursion on Saturday didn't get an invitation, but I got the impression that they had different email interactions, but I don't know the details of those interactions, so I can't speak as to what they were. But I suddenly was going to the mixer, as it was being called, on Sunday.
And I know just, we spoke about that, and you were pretty bummed once you found out what was going to happen at the mixer that you couldn't attend. So it's cool that you did get an invite.
Yeah, but you know why, right?
Yeah.
Because I wanted to support my friend, the scribe.
Donuts.
Yeah. Okay, I wanted to support my friend, the scribe, and there were going to be donuts. Okay, so this obviously was a weird, thrilling, cool little excursion. 4 people got a complete sequence of events, like the hotel room, the way it was staged, everything was fascinating, utterly fascinating. The details, the fact that there were family photos inside the hotel, so when Tom and Margaret walked up, we recognized them from the photos that were in the hotel room.
I have a question. Did you immediately turn into Escape Room Russell?
No.
It's like, oh,
No.
okay.
No, because it was a hotel room, and it was obviously someone's, like someone was staying there.
Okay.
So I would never do that to a person.
Right.
I would never walk into a hotel room and open your suitcase. I would
Right.
never do that.
Yeah, but if we're somewhere in a hotel together.
So there was some snooping going on. There was some snooping going on. So yeah, but we just like casually snooping.
Got it.
Nothing like tearing things apart. I just want to point something out. Like, so when the whole thing started to unfold, and this is just Russell riffing on how I am buying into this, because I am buying into this, and I'm going to, for lack of a better terms, I'm playing along. Like, I don't know where this is leading, but I want to play along. When we got the phone call in the vehicle that this was not an official OOA vehicle and something had gone wrong, and that this was a major foul up, and we were in possibly danger and really basically being abducted. When I said that to the car, to the other people involved, I said, I need to inform you that this is not an official OOA vehicle. One response in the vehicle, well, of course it's not. Somewhat cynical. And then I think they realized like how it came off, because the next thing they did was they turned to the driver and went, because I said we're going to trust the driver, he did ask the driver, like, are you OOA? And the driver said, trust me, I'm taking you to the right place. But the other 2 people in the car were just chatting socially about social calendars. And so literally I say, we're being abducted, and there was no reaction. None whatsoever. And I'm in my own head said, like, well, that's no fun. Like, it just took me completely out of the moment. So that odd disconnect of like not even gonna react to that phone call. And so the chatting went on and everything. And then I get the next phone call about, well, you have to ask for Thomas, all that other stuff. Again, Like, okay, whatever. And it's like, look, everyone's going to play this the way they want to play it. But it was disheartening for me because I wanted to be in that moment. I wanted to. I was about to say I wanted to be abducted, but that sounds weird. But
Not from you.
so, but it was like a break mentally that wasn't welcome,
Right.
for
and
me.
and that's the thing. They always say you only get what you put in, and for all the ever since they started saying that, we took it as, okay, we have to post, we have to repost, we have to
Right.
show that we're active. But after hearing this, it takes on a whole new meaning. You only get what you put in. You need to be a part of it. You
Yeah.
need to react. You need to do this. Otherwise, the experience is not going to be the same for you.
Right. And the following day, when we went to the mixer, we're going to describe a private thing that we experienced. I was in, like, I went in 100%. I was scared. I was thrilled. So the difference between the two, I think, just highlight how, for me, disappointing that car ride was, because that could have been really tense. And the fact that other people weren't playing it that way, which, again, not a criticism, that's a choice on their part. Just it really derailed me a little bit. So, I'm just putting it out there. Just like if you're, and again, this goes to immersive theater experiences. We're going to talk later in this podcast about an immersive theater experience, and it's the same thing. What you get into it is how willing you are to being present to what the performers are doing around you. And even though we were just riding in a car, the phone calls, everything, because immediately I put it together like, oh, wait, the first phone calls weren't from the OOA. The first phone calls were from the Brothers of Seraph. And they're like, that's why they're calling the different phones in the vehicle. So, and that's why they called me. It's like OOA called me. So all of that was triggering for me. And meanwhile, there was this chat about social calendars and someone being cynical about it.
Right.
So it was a bit disappointing for me on that level, because it could have been a lot more fun.
Oh yeah, and I've been in an extreme haunt where I had a similar situation where as soon as one person is like, whatever, it totally takes you out. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, and it's funny because the next day something completely different happened.
So yeah, so that was your Saturday, which was amazing. And
It was very cool.
And all day Saturday, I kept wondering, what's going to happen, because they said that a waiver was going to be sent and it needed to be signed before you got an address. I never got the waiver. So people were saying they were getting the waivers on Friday night, and it's like, okay, everything's signed. I'm ready to go. I can't wait. I never got one. And all day Saturday, I kept waiting. I was like, okay, if I don't get one by tomorrow, I don't know if I'm even invited. I think I am. I'm on the invite, but, maybe that's part of the paranoia thing where it's like,
Right.
ha, ha, ha. We're inviting you. Just kidding. Who knows? I hope they don't do that. Please don't do that. Finally, Saturday comes and goes. Russell does his thing. Sunday morning comes, and I wake up, check my email, no waiver. So somehow, once again, my mind goes to maybe I slipped through the cracks. I did, however, have an email waiting for me from the OOA, but that email was, we still haven't received your waiver, tick-tock, tick-tock.
Wow.
And I replied to that email saying, I never received a waiver. Could you please send one? Never got a reply. So when I woke up, didn't have anything. I emailed them and said, hey, it's Sunday morning. I still don't have a waiver. Am I still invited?
And also, I should interject here that I was invited late Saturday as a result of the email exchange after the Saturday event for me. I also never got the waiver,
Right.
which was supposed to be signed and sent back in advance.
Yeah. So I received a reply a few minutes later basically saying, email us back and say you understand and your waiver from the last event will carry over. It's
Which
like,
is exactly how they handled me, except they handled it, 25 minutes before the event was
Right.
when I got it. Yeah.
So, okay, understandable. I emailed them. I'm good to go. Okay, let's do this. Getting really excited now. And on the invite, there was the zip code, but not the address. The address was supposed to come, I think Someone said it was supposed to come at 12:30.
I'm not sure exactly where that information came from.
I don't either.
Because on the invite, it actually says the address will be mailed to you the morning of the event.
Mm-hmm. And then in some of our chats of people going like through text messages and whatnot, someone brought up, oh, it's not going to get released until 12:30. So I'm not sure where that came from. I don't remember if it was posted anywhere. But anyway, so that was the date. Where we live, based on traffic, it would take at least an hour. So we didn't want to risk it, and we started driving to that zip code. And there were 3 cars. We were carpooling. There was 5 total people. By the time the address came, we realized that only 2 out of those 5 people had gotten the address. So what that means, if we did not carpool, if we weren't following one another, if all of us went individually, 3 of us would not have made it to the event on time.
We should be specific in the fact that we realized that on the way there, but still with less than half an hour before the event starting, like only 2 people out of 5.
Right. And then you emailed them while we were there.
So we stopped, and there were 5 of us standing in a parking lot nearby because a couple of us had the address, but we didn't want to arrive too early either. We were just standing there in a parking lot with our phones in our hands, waiting for emails. And I emailed them saying, hey, I know I was the last one invited because I got this invitation just last night, but don't have the address, don't have a waiver. And that's when, and like literally instantly, like the response was within a couple minutes, here's the address, and can we just use the waiver from last time? Please state that. So I responded and did that. So I had the address, but you still didn't.
I didn't. I never got it.
You never got the address.
And I didn't bother emailing them because I was with everyone.
Right.
So we all had it as a group. But, the silver lining, I guess, is if they keep talking about community, if it wasn't for community, we wouldn't have been there.
Right,
because
absolutely.
they're the ones. But I just also want to point out that there are people driving great distances that were in this carpool. Sean,
massive distances.
Sean the Gilded was up from San Diego, which is from San Diego to where we were. It was probably a 3-hour drive. Morgan came down from Sacramento, which is 1,000 miles. And for any sort of mix-up where an email doesn't get sent with information like that, that's a wasted weekend and a wasted trip for those people.
Yeah, absolutely. If they had missed the event because of that, it would have had very bad consequences just on the reputation. And let's go back to the word perception.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And, to be telling us, I don't want to, beat this too hard, but this has happened at other events too.
Right.
Tension has, I know, tried to make it up to people. Somebody who had this treatment at the very first consultation was at the event yesterday. Mm-hmm. So, but this did happen to her where she was given a time, but the address was never sent, so she completely missed the consultation. I noticed she was at the event yesterday. I was very happy to see her.
Right.
So, but the confusion is, I don't know, would consistent be the right word?
I mean, I don't feel it's consistent. Like, I don't, it's not like every single time.
No, but it has happened multiple times
it has,
to different people.
It has happened, and it's definitely something that I feel needs to be looked at.
Right.
And, kept in the back of your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess the warning from our experience on Sunday would be, like, if you get a zip code, you have to be proactive because they're not always reliable.
Right.
And it's like, and look, I I just feel like I don't want to criticize them because I've had such good, like, live events from them.
Oh, totally. But the thing is,
but it's also fair.
It is. We're not saying don't do this because this happened to us once. We're not saying that at all. Like, because it's been amazing so far, but it's not perfect. No one's perfect. And, we're just pointing it out and to keep it in the back of your minds if you are participating in this. And it's more of a warning that if you're hearing of people, say on the forums or on Facebook saying, I got my waiver, I got my time, I got this, and you do have an invite and you have not heard anything, that's when you should be proactive and say, hey, I hear other people are getting this. Just want to make sure that I'm still included.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's the best way to go about it. With all that aside, our group did have the address, and we were told not to come before a certain time. So we were killing time in a McDonald's parking lot, and started conspiring, like, what's it going to be, and giving our theories.
Nerding out, I believe, is the term.
Yeah, wondering if Russell really is a plant, and that he's because he went to the BOS event, even though it wasn't a BOS event, and keeping an eye on him, even though he was in our carpool. But either way, the time comes, and we go to a VFW hall, and one by one, we see everybody start showing up. It was such an incredible experience because there were new people there. There were some people that have been doing this for months, and everybody was so open and so friendly. And it was just such an incredible feeling because I'm very much an introvert. Like, I don't like meeting people. I don't like going out of my way to meet people, but it was like a family reunion where I actually liked my family. Like, there were new people coming up like, hey, I'm Joe and I'm Max. I was the guy that did this. And it's like, oh, it's you guys. Like, nice to meet you. And, and just seeing old friends from this, like, seeing Andrew and Neil and everybody like, hey, what's up, man? Long time. How you been? Just catching up. And it, like, the feeling of camaraderie was incredible.
And instant.
Yeah. That's another thing too. Like, there was no weird, like, I don't know about that guy or, anything like that. It was all like, cool, you're in this, I'm in this, we're in this together.
So the time came and the door opened to the VFW hall, and we were welcomed immediately by a woman who I later learned was Mary, attendant 19. So she, one by one, we walked by a table. And we had name tags, and we were given name tags, and we immediately noticed that a few of our name tags had different markings. They were different colors.
That was one of the first things I saw, because I looked for my name and I saw your name.
Yeah.
And we were in line, and I went to Russell and I was like, Russell, our name tags have dashes on them.
Right. And I couldn't see the name tags at that point, so I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, look at the name tags. I had to like move around, like, oh, now I see.
Yeah, that the escape room mind kicked in.
So one by one, we were given name tags, and we were given a rose, which was a very nice touch, I felt. And we walked in, and sort of assisting with the name tags. Actually, I should say, even before I got to the table with the name tags, Sean the Gilded, who knew that I had at that point, I just mentioned that, I had been given information the day before about a girl that was missing, and I knew that it was Addison. And Sean leaned over and said, Russell, Addison is here. I saw her helping with the name tags. This was Addison, the girl that Tom and Margaret had shown me the photo the day before. And, she was very, very shy and introverted, and I would say closed off from everyone. And, Mary, the attendant 19, was open and wonderful and welcoming and very friendly. And Addison was there, and she was the complete opposite of that. So it was odd. And, in passing, I didn't know how to behave. I didn't know what to do. So I just said, hi, your name is Addison. And she literally shut down, looked at the floor, and would not communicate with me in any way. So I moved on. But I knew at that point that this was the Addison that, I had met her parents, and her parents wanted to get me some sort of message. I should say that in my pocket, I had a note. I was going to try to get to her that said, hey, look, I have a message to deliver to you from someone who cares about you deeply. If you can reach out to me, if you can communicate with me, if you have a moment to speak, I'd like to. And I never had that opportunity, and we'll explain a little bit of that later. But I want to almost use the word broken. She seemed so frail.
Right.
Frail is a better word, not broken. Frail.
And this has nothing to do with her or the way she looks physically.
Oh no!
But she looked like a beaten dog.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like she's a lovely young lady. That's what she is. But yeah, her demeanor was very, very frail. Not physically speaking, her presence. So I am completely flummoxed because I just passed Addison. I walk into the room and I there's a woman with a camera and she's pointing. I thought she was taking a picture of a poster on the wall, and so she motions me forward, and I try to walk past quickly, and she rather bluntly is like, "No, no, stop, stop, stop." I'm like, "Oh, she wanted to take my picture, obviously." And I had my rose, and so I held, and like I was completely flummoxed at this point. So she waves me on after she takes my picture, and this older gentleman wearing actually a very stylish scarf and jacket and walks over to me almost immediately. Like he looked like he knew that I was coming. I was surprised at the fact that he basically targeted me as soon as I moved beyond the woman with the camera. And he comes up and he places his hand on the shoulder and says, "Russell," I'm like, we need to, and he basically literally physically like ushers me through the room, through a double swinging door, and takes me down a hallway. At the end of this hallway, he opens an employees only door, and he says, "It's just, we have to step in here." And it's sort of this, I don't know, rinky-dink staircase that looked handmade out of wood. It was very odd. And then we walked up into this very tiny, cramped storage attic space. He sort of announces that Russell is here, and he leaves. And I'm alone, and there are two chairs facing each other. And I noticed a black cloth on the floor, and I noticed that there was something draped over the back of one of the chairs, which I wondered if that was a hood. So I was instructed to sit in the chair before he left. And so I sat in the chair. A female voice said, right, "Russell, put the hood on." So I reached back and I put the hood on. So this female voice that I'd heard came closer and suddenly in my ear whispered, "Russell." And I nearly jumped through the ceiling. And I issued a very strong cuss word. And I immediately went, "Oh, I am so sorry. I just cussed. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry." And she's like, "That's fine, Russell, fine, everything. Sugar." And as soon as she said sugar, I knew it was Gatekeeper 4. And she's like, "Oh," and I can't do her justice. She has the most marvelous voice. I cannot do it justice. But I knew it was her because she spoke the way some of her postings have been online. So she assured me that my cussing was okay. And she said, "Russell, I'm going to put something on your head." And immediately I thought, "Oh my God, this is the helmet." And I was right. She put a helmet, and she warned me. She said, "Okay, I'm going to put this on your head."
And this is on top of the hood.
Yeah, this is on top of the hood, definitely. "And I'm going to put this on your head. If you need to adjust it, that's fine." It's like, it's only for a couple minutes. And she said the safe word is 4. So I knew it was Gatekeeper 4.
And the fact that they did have a safe word, I think is really cool, because that's something that I had joked about with you in the last podcast.
True.
Saying that, because some people aren't used to this kind of stuff, they might freak out and not know what to do. And, joking with you because you're always about safety. Like, I think it's amazing that they did that. And I think it's a very good move.
Yes, but also I think this is the first time we've encountered a safe word, because this is the first time for me that they've done anything that for some people, what I'm about to describe would have required a safe word for some people.
Right.
I don't think for you, or I don't think for me, Mike, but like it was freaking intense. So she lets me know that this helmet is going to be put on my head. And she says that I can adjust it if need be. It's only going to be for a couple minutes. So, the helmet goes over my head, and it is some sort of, it felt like basically like a catcher's mitt, because it had some kind of something over the face, a guard over the face or something.
Catcher's helmet, not mitt.
I'm sorry, what?
Catcher's helmet, not mitt.
Oh,
Mitt
I
is
said-
what they catch the ball with.
Oh, yeah. Okay, you can tell how much of a jock I am. So, yes, a catcher's helmet. So it was like a catcher's helmet that you put over your head, and there was some kind of like a face guard or something, and it was so tight. And over the hood basically sucked against your face. So it was immediately extremely intimidating by the claustrophobic feel that you got. It was drastic, and so when she put it on, she basically crunched it over my left ear. So I reached up to kind of like adjust, and she said, and she encouraged me, like, just to get it comfortable. And so what I did is I basically, reached my hand up and I kind of poked the area of the hood right in front of my mouth, so it wasn't actually almost acting like a gag, but it was that tight. It was incredibly intimidating. And to be totally honest, I got to admit, it was a bit of a rush. It was like, because all of this sensory overload, man. So, and one thing that they had done, which I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this. One thing that they had done is right before her voice appeared, like there was some loud crash noise. So they did the classic haunt thing of startle me with a sudden noise before all of this began. So we get into it. She, moves around and she tells me, she basically welcomes me. So she has startled me with the voice, and she moves around to in front of me, and she's talking like Gatekeeper 4, and she's like, sugar, like, you're going to give Mama something. You're going to give Mama something good. And she says, Russell, we want to know if you have something for us, and this is what's going to happen. I'm going to count down from 10 to 1, and when we reach 1, you are going to give us what you have, and it better be good. Okay, 10, and she starts, and she's counting down. And I am completely freaked out. The claustrophobic hood, the pressure of the helmet. I have no idea, because I'm in this situation where I was whisked into this room. I have no idea what's going on. I don't know anything about Addison's position in this group. I know that Addison is in this room, and I know that I had the meeting, so I know I have the teddy bear that was given to me, which supposedly belongs to Addison. So is that what she was referring to? And immediately I was like, I don't want to reveal that I have this, because they would see it as disrespect. I'm like, this is literally my mental state at that moment. Like, that is where I was so upset, distraught, terrified, thrilled. It was like, and she is 9, 8, 7. I'm like, I have no idea. I literally, I'm sure I did that vocal thing, which I do, that Mike knows so well. If I am having doubt, I do this like vocal reaction, and I know I started that. I'm sure I started that. And she like 2, 1, and I choke. I absolutely choke. I have like, I've had a meeting, but I'm uncomfortable. I don't want to reveal this. And Gatekeeper lets me know. She is immediately like, that is not good enough. Like, you had better do better than that. You have got to give me, like, she is after me. And she starts again with 10, 9, 8. And it's somewhere during all of this freakish, like, intensity, suddenly there's hands on my shoulder that grab me, and there's a voice in my ear, and it's a man, and I think he said something like, come on, Russell. I don't know. I have no clear remember, like this was all overload at this point. And she gets to 1 again. I said, I had a meeting. I met people there. They asked me to help. They're looking for someone. I was like, and again, it wasn't good enough. It wasn't what she wanted. And so again, we went like the 10, 9, 8, and it keeps going, and she's getting more intense. And then finally, I don't know what to do. I have to give them something. But I don't want to reveal the teddy bear, because I don't know the purpose in she reaches 1, and I say, I had a meeting with people that were in pain. They're looking for a loved one. And she said, well, that's better. And I said, and I was given the instruction that I need to contact her. I think that's what I said. Or I said, find her. And there was a pause, and Gatekeeper 4 said, good. Russell, you've done well. I just, like, I think I had to straighten myself because during that whole thing, I was squirming so much. And I think that's probably why the guy might have grabbed me, is I was shifting and I was slinking in the chair and I was squirming around. I'm like, it was such an intimidating experience. And at the end of it, you know, she moves around and, you know, the helmet is removed. She says, you're going to sit here and you're going to count. Again, the 10 count. And then you're going to take the hood off and you're going to go downstairs and you're going to find the man who led you here. You're going to find the leader. And you're going to tell him that you're safe, which I think is an indication that somehow whatever this test was, I had passed it in that moment. And I was shaking. And I walked back into the room and I don't know. I don't know what I came off like when I was back in that room. I think I walked past you. I know I walked past Jake and Neil. I was shaken. And I finally, I saw the leader and I walked up and, she had said, tap him on the shoulder. And so I reached up and touched his shoulder and said, I'm supposed to tell you that I'm safe. And he was very happy with that news. So that experience was worth the whole weekend. Like, that was so emotionally intimidating. The claustrophobic thing, that was so intense. And my heart was pounding. Like, it was a thrill ride. And I am so grateful I had that.
That's awesome. I had a similar experience. So we walk in and I didn't realize that you were taken right when we walked in.
I don't think anybody did because they got me so fast.
So I walked in and
by the way, I would like to say that I was frantically looking around the room as he was leading me away. Everyone was in conversations. Everyone was looking at the freaking donuts.
Can you blame us? They're donuts, dude.
Yeah, they were awesome donuts. But literally, I was being led out of the room, and I'm looking around like all my friends are looking at donuts. I was like, I felt very alone in that moment.
Like, excuse me, sir, I know you're leading me somewhere really cool, but can I just get a donut first?
So after I came back...
So I had a very similar experience to you. I got in the room, got my name tag, and immediately started just looking around because there are OOA posters on the wall. There are... On each of the tables, there's something. There's something different. On one of them, there was one of those old, I don't know if it's an oil lamp or an incense lamp, or it was one of those things where you rub and a genie comes out. It was one of those types of lamps. No genie did come out, unfortunately, because I did rub it. And on one of them, there was a mandolin or some sort of stringed instrument. I don't know what it was called.
Auto harp.
Auto harp, okay. And on another one, there was a tape recorder with a couple tapes. On another, there was a candy bowl with candy in it. So, of course, me, in my mind, is like, okay, these are clues. What do they lead? Okay, this tape is about learning Spanish. This instrument could be a Spanish thing, and going around to all the different posters, looking at who it was created and edited by, looking at the volume numbers, looking at the dates, trying to figure something out. So that's happening. I don't realize Russell's gone. I'm walking around, mingling, eating donuts, and I see Addison, and just knowing it's Addison because I spoke to an Addison on the phone for the consultation. I didn't know if it was the same one, so I went over and said, "Oh, hello," and she looked very sad, like Russell had previously mentioned. He also mentioned that we were given a rose when we walked in, so I tried to give her my rose to try to cheer her up, and I was like, "Oh, would you like my flower?" And she just said no, and within seconds, there was a guy that was going around and telling people jokes. He came up to me and said, "Oh, no, don't talk to her," and whisked me away. And I was like, "Oh, okay, it's your party, man." So that kept happening, and I kept seeing all of my friends getting talked to, whether it be from that man or the woman taking the photographs or the guy that took you away.
Right.
I kept seeing all these interactions, and so I was like, oh, okay. And so I have my name tag, and I'm like puffing my chest out every time they walk by to be like, hey, this is me. This is my name. Do you want to talk to me too? And finally, and I believe I was the last person before it began that got led away. But the same scarf man did the same thing to me. He's like, oh, I need to speak to you. And he took me out through the doors, took me in the back, through the employee door, up the stairs, same thing, 2 chairs, sit down here. He left. Or he did say, I'm presenting Michael Fontaine, similar situation. And all of a sudden I hear a voice saying, sit in the other chair and put the hood on. So I did that. And at this point, I mean, this is going to sound weird, but I've had so many hoods put on me in my day.
Yeah.
But for some reason, this was so much more crazy to me. And I don't know why, because my heartbeat was going a million miles.
I think it's the level of emotional investment that we have chosen to make. Mm-hmm. I think that's part of it, because I had the same, that hood. First of all, it was a very constrictive hood. It was, but I agree with you completely. There was something on another level for this.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's the emotional thing or the fact that we've been dropped hints that this is going to get really dark really soon.
That's also part of it.
Especially with that phone call that I received.
Yeah.
So I'm there thinking, okay, my back is to a door. I have a hood on. What the hell is going to happen to me? And of course, my imagination filled in the blanks, much like yours did that you mentioned before. And I just started thinking of the worst, which I'm not going to say because I'm not giving them any ideas.
Probably smart.
But I was sitting there, and then I heard the door open, and the same thing. I got the boom. It sounded like maybe like a stick being hit on the ground, like a "thou shalt not pass" type of thing. And all of a sudden, I hear a woman's voice, and immediately I'm like, "Oh my God, it's Gatekeeper 4." Because I've heard your voice. You called me.
You have such a crush on her.
I don't. I'm just excited that I'm being able to put the pieces together instead of who is this woman talking to me. I know instantly it's Gatekeeper 4.
Okay.
Whatever, hater. And,
I'm not a hater. I love her.
No, so you're the one who has a crush.
No.
You just said you loved her.
No.
Nope. Don't edit that out. But she starts off, and first she says something like, you don't know who I am, but I definitely know who you are. And I'm like, oh, wait, maybe it's not Gatekeeper 4, but I'm still convinced it is. And then she said something, it was something along the lines of she holds the key, and she holds the key for everything I do and don't do. She said some other things, but I don't remember them. She did get to the point where she said, what can you offer us that you cannot live without? You need to make an offering to the OOA. And I'm going to count down to 10. So it's very similar to yours. And I started thinking and freaking out because it's like, okay, I can give you my wallet. No, I need my license. I definitely can't give that to you. What about my shirt? No, I can't go out naked. I started thinking about all these things, like physical things that I could offer them. The thing I had that I did finally offer them, and I feel so horrible about it. And I really honestly do. I'm tearing up right now thinking about it because I don't ever give gifts away, and I gave a gift away, and I feel freaking horrible about it. And what I had was one of the medallions that Susie had made, and that was hanging. And I told her, this is a gift that was given to me, and I will give this as an offering to you as a sign of devotion. It was made for me, but it's for the OOA, and I can give this to you. And it was hanging on my belt loop. I was trying to untie the knot, and all of a sudden I feel a hand just rip it off.
Wow.
And then Gatekeeper 4, or whoever the woman was, said, very good, and said the same thing to me. Sit there and count to 10, and then take off the hood and leave and tell the man, find the man that brought you here and tell him you are safe. Also, one thing I wanted to mention is I felt rope. I don't think I was tied up, but I did feel rope on my shoulders. And
I did not feel that, and somebody else said that as well. Because I definitely, somebody else said that they had been tied in some way. I definitely wasn't, and I mean, 'cause that would have been that would. Oh wow, I'm tongue tied over that. I was, wow, I was going to say that would have been very intimidating because the hood, because of the helmet hood situation.
So they told me to sit there, count to 10, take off the hood, find the man, tell him. And they left, and then all of a sudden I heard a man say, "Now!" And that's when I started counting. And so 10, 9, 8.
Oh, wow.
And then I left. So hearing that, it was just like, but hearing your conversation and the information you had, I just put 2 and 2 together. Because my offering, what if that is in relation to her private messages to me? Because she said, have they approached you? Surely you know what I'm talking about. So what if, because I took yours more, not as an interrogation,
Oh, it felt like one.
but you know what I mean? Like knowing that you have some information, maybe she thinks that I was given information and I was supposed to give it up. But because of what I said earlier, I never got any information.
Wow.
So maybe that's something that was supposed to happen that didn't happen.
They thought that you had been given something in public. That's why the approach in public comment was made. So they think, dude, they totally think you are hiding something.
That's
right
what
now.
I'm guessing.
Wow.
Because that, like, it makes total sense based on what you gave them that made them happy about.
And and I was so uncomfortable, about, because I didn't know how much to reveal, because I wanted to protect Addison.
Right.
That's what I wanted to do. Like, because I don't care who. Like, I mean, Addison seemed very distraught in some ways. And so my whole methodology was like, oh my God, I can't say everything because I wanted to protect her. But if that's the case, you are. I was about to use the word target, but that's not right. Like you're on someone's radar who we don't know who that is.
Right. Like, who are they?
Yeah, exactly. Who are they? Well, I have a question for you real quick.
Yeah.
That male voice, do you have any theories on who that is?
I'm wondering if it's someone named AG.
Okay.
But that's the only thing I would really think of, because in our conversations, in his and I private conversations, he said he would be watching me.
Okay.
So
I take it you don't want to say his name?
No.
Okay, because I think it's the same person.
Okay.
Because that person reached out to me in a message afterwards, and I got sort of a welcome message right at the beginning of all this, like, hey, like, welcome, glad you're on board. It was kind of that tone, and never heard a response from him when I said, yeah, I'm happy to be here. And then suddenly, after the event, he sent me a message and said, hope you enjoyed your time with us. And I wrote back and said, I have mixed emotions, but yeah, I did. So it's interesting. I think that's who that was. And I also said, I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to shake your hand. Correct? And he did not respond.
Oh. Nice.
So I was trying to figure out, because, dude, he scared me, and I appreciate anyone scaring me. I was like,
Good to know.
Oh, screw you. Okay, I shouldn't have gone there.
So those were our 2 personal experiences that happened within the first 20 minutes.
Oh yeah, it was immediate. And other people received, we've been told, similar experiences, but for different information and different outcomes, apparently.
Right. And so I believe I was the last one before the show started, because I came out, I found the man, I told him I was safe, and as soon as I did that, I sat down and he was on stage starting the ceremony.
Something that we should mention, apparently while we were having these excursions away from the group and the little private interactions, what was going on is it really was a mixer for the community. And people were talking, people were comparing experiences, but something that was happening was that Addison was actually moving around through the group and was offering little pieces of advice about trust your instincts. If you don't trust someone, your gut might be telling you the right thing. Somebody was sort of warned, like, you know what? You should always let people know where you are at all times. Somebody, I don't know, it sounded almost like a joke to me, but someone said, don't suddenly take out life insurance if you're involved with this group.
Really?
So, yeah.
Because that goes back to what Robert Jones told me.
That's true.
He was investigating life insurance claims.
Yes, somebody was told yesterday, don't buy any new life insurance, I believe was what they were told.
Okay. If that was you, contact us, or hopefully by the time this comes out, it will be talked about on the forums or something, because we need to chat.
So while we were doing that, like people were being pulled away, it was a mixer, but inside the mixer, there were these little things going on. I know that there was someone else who wanted to talk to Addison, and he never had the chance to get close to her. Because I had the teddy bear, because I had met her parents, I walked up to her at one point and introduced myself, and I said, you know, how are you? And I was like, oh, and I literally, I think I started with like an interesting name or a nice name or something, and you know, she was very, very quiet, and I paused and I gave her the opportunity to speak, and in that pause, Mary, the attendant 19, came and literally blocked us. Like, she came and she stepped directly in front of me, separating Addison from me, took her hand, put it on my shoulder, steered me away, and led me, and started, to be totally honest, she was almost flummoxed of like, oh, well, let me talk to you about, like, and, you know, you remind me of someone, and just like, and it was like she was trying to improv her way to get me away from Addison. It was very clear they did not want me to speak to Addison, or it sounds like anyone to speak to Addison.
Yeah, because I got the same thing.
Yeah, you had described that earlier. That's, you know, so while you were upstairs, like, I was trying to get to Addison, and it wasn't working. And I know someone else was trying to get to Addison. He said that he couldn't get to her either. So you came down, and the leader got up on, there was a small stage at one end, and he began to speak to us.
Yes. And he started off just basically giving an overview about why we're here and what is about to take place. And then the reason I keep mentioning that I might have been the last person is because my heart rate was still up there. I was still just shaken. And all of a sudden, probably about 2 to 5 minutes into his starting, he pulls and we have Scribe Fontaine, who was going to say a few words. And I'm thinking, great. I just had a hood on my head. My heartbeat is still a million miles an hour, and now I have to get up in front of everybody and talk, which already, that alone would make my heartbeat go faster. But having my heartbeat already go crazy on top of this, like, it was, I don't know if you saw me, but I was like shaking, and you could
I could tell.
You could probably hear it in my voice because I was just like, And
well, it also, I mean, you're fairly soft spoken, but you know, it wasn't that. It was the tone and kind of the waver of your voice. I could tell definitely that you were nervous.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it had come that close on the tail of the private encounter.
Yeah. So I gave my speech, and that was it.
Oh no, I have to break in here. Look, you're my friend. I truly appreciate, you know, who you are and what you are. And I have to say, I think the words you spoke, I don't care, inside the context of the tension experience or outside, I think you completely rose to that occasion. You mic dropped that moment of your life. Absolutely. I think what you said was perfect. Your physical choice was very moving in the fact that you didn't want to stand on the stage. You wanted to stand amongst us, which was a choice you made. I think that was noticed by everyone in the room. I think you actually touched people in that room. And I sincerely mean that as a compliment to you, my friend.
Thank you. All right, farts. Enough of this stuff. Fart. But thank you. Seriously, that's amazing because, you know, when I was writing it, of course I was freaking out. Like, I hope this is going to be good enough, and I hope, you know, the people listening to it, like, they don't take me as like some preacher on late night TV or, you know, something like that, or come off as an infomercial. But
No, not
you
at
know,
all.
everything I said was true, and I really do appreciate all the friendships I've made and the people I've met, and it is just incredible. And, you know, to have people even applaud because they wanted to, not because they felt they had to, like, that's incredible to me. So thank you, and thank you to everybody that was there that, you know, applauded, except for Sean the Gilded, because I was sitting at his table and I noticed he was doing a very sarcastic. So something is up with Sean, and I don't know what it is.
Nobody does.
And I don't know if he had a bad experience, if he was brought into the back, or if he talked to someone else or someone told him something. I don't know. But I'm really worried about him because that's not like him at all to be like that. And it was a flip of the switch change. And I just want to know what happened to my friend.
Yeah, it's like several people did notice that, and I agree. I mean, Sean's a great guy, so it was an odd demeanor change. You know, I firmly believe it has something to do with something that he was told or happened at that event.
Right. So, Sean, if you need anything, we're here for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like Sean has been very good to me. Sean has offered, you know, suggestions, and like he's, you know, we don't communicate often, really. But, you know, anytime that I've ever asked him, it's like, hey, guidance, like he's been there, man.
Right. As opposed to me, who's like, ooh, if you do this, but what about that?
So you live to confuse me.
So after my speech, the Scarf Man gets back up and says they have business to take care of before we move on to anything else. He mentions that they have a traitor that needs to be dealt with. All of us are just looking at one another like, what the hell? Who? Like, who is it? Is it Kim? Is it Sean Decker? Like, who? Like, what's happening?
And to be totally honest, after my meeting the day before, I was terrified that somehow it was me.
Oh, yeah.
I completely freaked out when he said that. Not to make it about me, but I did have that moment of, holy crap, I met with this other group, and I am now sitting in a room full of people who that would probably not approve of that if they knew the full extent of what I had, including a toy that belonged to Addison.
Right. And so he yells out to bring the traitor out, and they bring out a person, and I instantly know who it is.
I did not, because I had never met him before.
They walk him out with a bag over his head, or hood on his head, and they have him stand in front of all of us. And everybody that knows him, we all just started looking at each other with like eyes wide open, like, holy crap, it's Rizzo. It's freaking Mike Rizzo. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, he's like, takes off his hood, it's him. And he basically, the Scarf Man then reads things that Michael Rizzo has said publicly, like F the OOA and, you know, stuff like that. And then he had Michael say the same things back. Like, what did you say again? And he said the same things. He repeated himself. Then the Scarf Man says it's going to come down to a vote between us here if we want to let him back into the experience. So he says he's going to judge it by noise. And he starts off like, who wants him to come back in? And almost everybody like, yeah, we want him back. And they clap. And he's like, who's opposed? And of course, me, you know, I'm like, boo, no. And the yeses won out, obviously. And I just had to do it. I knew me booing wasn't going to have any effect. And Michael Rizzo, I love you, man. I hope you know that. It came out of a just messing with you place. So I'm glad you're back, but don't screw up again, because next time it'll be for real.
Really? You mess with people?
No.
Yeah, I had never met him before, because I know that he had attended like one group meeting. I think it was a bowling night or something, if I remember correctly. And I ended up having to work late that night and I couldn't attend, but I knew who he was Like, it took me a second when the hood came off. Like, oh, wait, he looks familiar. Okay. And then when it's like, oh, yeah, okay, now when they started talking about what he had done, like, yeah, okay. It's just I had never met him in person.
After he was welcomed back, we had a little bit of entertainment. And the woman that was sitting in a chair got up on stage, and she had a cello, and she started playing the cello. And I don't know if it was a song, but it sounded really cool.
Yeah, except I will also say that it sounded very ominous.
Yeah, that's your word of today.
Yeah, it is, because the whole weekend had that vibe to me. Believe me, everything leading up to this did.
But it was dark and creepy, and
very
it
moody.
just sounded really cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. The gentleman Mike has referred to a couple of times as the scarf guy, his actual, I was told that he was the leader. And when he first introduced himself and started speaking to us, he made a reference that there was going to be the ceremony of the ringing of the bell today. Now, after the musical performance, the main, personnel involved had disappeared, and they re-entered. And this time they were all wearing robes, looking like very much church wardrobe of some kind.
Yeah.
Very ornate robes of, what were they? They were like orange and
white.
Yeah, orange and white. And they basically led a procession around those of us who were seated in the center of the room. When they got to the center of the front of the room, basically the ceremony was about to begin. And we were told that, to be totally honest, it was so surprising that I don't remember the exact terminology. I don't know if they called her an apostle, and it was Addison. And they mentioned at one point something about disrobing her in front of us, and it was so shocking and surprising. And this ceremony actually, just moments into it possibly beginning, there were screams from the back of the room. And a man burst in yelling and screaming at the personnel involved in the ritual. The ritual, probably not the right word. Ceremony, accusing them of being evil and wrongdoers. At one point, he pulled out a cell phone and saying that he was going to post this on the internet, and he was screaming and yelling. And I immediately, as soon as the man entered the room, gasped, because it was Tom, Addison's father,
who you met the day before.
Yes, that was the person who had told me the story of Addison, who had given me the bear that I was supposed to give to Addison. So at this point, I was completely, because I am the one person in that room, as far as I know, that had met him previous. And so I knew who it was, and I knew that he's not well. He's not right about this. And the fact that he was bursting this, I was afraid of what he might do. And he was tackled by a security guard as he was confronting the leader and accusing the leader and he was reaching out to Addison and like yelling her name and like, it's your dad. And suddenly the security guard tackled him and literally picked him up and threw him into the wall and actually physically broke the wall. Yeah. That's how much force was used. Everyone in the room was stunned at the amount of violence that was unfolding before us. I literally had this urge to jump out of the chair because I wanted to scream, "This is not the way to do this," because Tom obviously had lost it completely, and I didn't know what to do because I had this information, but also my thought was, if I do anything, it's going to jeopardize Addison.
Right, and you because if you watch any gang movie, the person that tries to keep the peace is the one who gets shot first.
I am ashamed to say that crossed my mind, because it means I wasn't there for either of them, which again goes to how effective some of this stuff is playing out. And I know that I'm not the only one that's being affected that way. Yeah, it was very, very emotional. And I know other people in that event, and I like, there was a woman sitting in front of me who was devastated by how they treated Michael Rizzo. There was like, so it's like there is ramifications to all of these scenes. It's really affecting people. So, they basically, the security guard manhandled Tom to the back of the room and threw him quite violently through the double doors that we had been led through to go to the private consultation areas. So at that point, the whole thing had been compromised. So during this, they rushed Mary, the attendant 19, Addison, everyone out the front door. The leader very quickly said, stay put. This has been compromised. We'll have to figure something out. The security guard led Tom out the back. Somebody had tried to chase down the leader, but he disappeared outside very quickly, so they couldn't find him. It was chaos. And at that point, everyone just kind of looked at each other.
Right, because he did say, stay put.
Yeah.
We will let you know about a new address, or we need to find a new place. We'll let you know.
Yeah, so after a few minutes, people started poking around and realizing that, there was an OOA document on one table. And as you said at the beginning, there were these items on the table. Everyone started to sort of inventory and look at those items closer, because at the beginning, I think everyone was just socializing and happy to be in each other's company. So at the end of this, I believe it was Andrew who received a phone call, and he walked.
He did get a phone call, but I think we need to explain how the phone call happened, because they told us to keep everything in our cars.
Oh, true.
We needed to keep our cell phones, bags, purses, whatever, in our cars.
Which is one reason why I couldn't get the teddy bear into the event, because I was going to bring it with me.
I suggested he put it under his shirt, but he did not want to do that because there is always a way. But after maybe 15 minutes or so, a woman came out of the double doors in the back with a cell phone, handed it to Andrew, and then Andrew left.
Right.
And I believe that the cell phone probably said, go here, go here, go here. And after a few minutes, he came back and made an announcement that everyone was to leave.
And that was how it ended.
Mm-hmm.
So, not really.
Oh.
It didn't end there. I know multiple people got certain private messages, calls, asking if they had had a good time, if they had enjoyed themselves today. Did you ever receive a follow-up call of any way, Mike?
I did not get a call.
I did. My phone rang at almost 7 p.m. exactly, and there was a very small female voice on the other end asking if this was Russell, and I said yes, and she said, "This is Addison." So Addison actually called me that night, and she said that she was very confused, but she thought that she had met me at the event today, and that she thought I had tried to talk to her or tell her something. I said, yes. I said, I was the one who tried to talk to you, and Mary, attendant 19, deliberately led me away from you, and she didn't want me to speak to you. And she told me that she was very confused, and she told me that she didn't know exactly what was going on in with her. But she said, Russell, I'm really confused because after what happened today, I don't think that man was my dad.
What?
I don't think that was my dad, but I'm scared. I'm scared for my family. I told her that I had met with that man, that his name was Tom, and that I met with him, and that he had shown me a photo of her, and that he was worried about her. And I told her that I had tried to like manage to give her a message, to hand her something, but they wouldn't let me get near her. And she came back with, I'm so worried. I'm so worried that they are doing something to my family, but my brain hurts so bad. But I can't talk long, but I don't think that man was my dad, but I think that they're doing something to my family, and I don't know what to do. And then there was this very odd hum, like a vibrating electronic sound
the
in
helmet.
the phone call. And she went on, she said, I can't talk long. I can't talk long. And she said, look, I will see you. I will see you soon. And I said, look, there are people who care for you. I care about you. I'm worried about you. And she thanked me for being concerned. And she said that she would see me soon. And then she hung up.
Wow.
And I got to admit, she sounded so scared and confused, and she kept several times said, "I'm so confused, my brain hurts, I don't know what's going on with me." She kept going back to that. So it was a really intense phone call. And that's sort of how my day ended, was with that.
Wow.
So I told her also, I didn't tell her exactly what, but I told her, I said, look, the man gave me a toy. I have a toy that I want to give you. You know, and just, she went back to the, I don't know what they're doing to my family, but I don't know if that man was my father or not. Which shocked me. Like total, I absolutely no preparation for that. I was stunned because after like a day of this is her family, and then for her to say that, I mean, you can interpret that so many ways. Does Tom and Margaret, like, do they have an agenda? What are they doing? Who are they really? Is Addison in so deep she doesn't even recognize her own parents? Like, there's so many things that my mind just imploded last night when the phone call got out. It was just so bizarre.
Wow, that's insane.
It was awesome and exciting, but it was also, I got to admit, I was sad because I, like, again, like, you want, like, fine, I'll take it personally. I felt like I'd failed. Mm-hmm. I really did. I felt like, you know, and I started playing like, oh my God, what if I'd been more aggressive? What if I'd done, like, what if I'd, like, pushed Mary Attendant 19 out of the way? But she was so nice and friendly. And, you know, I just, it left me in a weird place.
Which is scary to hear because you're already in a weird place.
Thank you for that. So, again, what an amazing weekend. I mean, what an amazing event. So, what was the follow-up for you, of any? I mean, we did kind of like have conversations with people.
Afterwards, a bunch of us met up and we just kind of did what we just did for the past couple hours and just talk about everything that happened. And did you see this or did you hear this? Did you get let upstairs? You know, things like that.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it, you know? One thing that, so if you're on the forums, sometimes people are delivering messages from people within the OOA. Lately, there's been a message about sharing more. There's things that I think people are given that they're not sharing, whether it be they think it's just for them or they think it's a puzzle for them to find out or they want to figure it out first. We are led to believe that there are many clues out there that people are hiding like that, and we can only figure out if we put them all together. So I want to urge people to share what they have. It's not so much a secret, and we're pretty much being told share or else you're not going to find clues. So I would encourage people to do that.
That's come up several different ways on the forums itself.
Yes.
You kind of made that sound like you'd received a private phone call.
Yeah.
It's like, but no, that's come up several times on the forums. Like, hey, like you're like something hasn't been revealed. Like maybe somebody should reveal something.
Right. And also, before we started the podcast, Russell and I came up with an idea. One of the things that goes along with the sharing is personal experiences. And we came up with with an idea, and we're still trying to figure it out, but I wanted to put it out there so people can start thinking. Your voice should be heard as well. And what we want to do is if you have an experience related to tension that you would like to share, let us know, and we can put it on the podcast. We're still trying to figure out how to do it. We think we might set up a voicemail number that you can call and leave a message, and we can just put that on the podcast. We're figuring it out, but I think that is a great way, number one, to show the community that we are a community, because I feel a lot of people think like, oh, well, they have the podcast, they talk about it. There's this site that can talk about it, but I don't have a website or a podcast. What can I do to spread the word? Well, we want to give you that opportunity. So like I said, we're still trying to figure it out, but keep that in mind. And when we do figure it out, we'll make a post about it, and you can contact us and we can give you whatever info it is we do.
To add to that, one of the reasons I think that this kind of came into our heads is because this is an experience which is not only based in Los Angeles, even though the website says that something is going to come to Los Angeles later this year. You know, it's a chance for other people to tell their stories of if they did get an email, if they did get a phone call, a private message, whatever. Like, yes, we have this podcast where we are nerding out, and I think we're able to sort of like let people live vicariously because we do seem to be, like hearing different sides of the story. Mike is obviously having a different, if you want to put it in the lingo of the tension experience, Mike and I have different paths. That's very clear. So we know that there are other people with different paths. And at the group meeting, the fact that everybody got different comments, everybody got different statements made to them, like that's what is not quite being out there and present, I think, is how many different individual things are being said and shared.
Right.
So we're going to try to figure out a way of helping that along.
Right. So that's it for the tension part of the podcast. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to hear about the other experiences we have, check in a few days and we'll have the second part of the podcast up where we talk about other things that we've done that are not the tension experience.
And trust us, we have a couple of things that we have done recently that are awesome.
Yeah, definitely. If what you've heard over the past couple hours intrigues you, you can find the Tension Experience information at thetensionexperience.com, on Facebook, The Tension Experience, on Instagram, _tension_experience, or on Twitter, _tension_exp.
And we would like to point out that we've done a few podcasts that have covered various aspects of the tension experience. Check out myhauntlife.com. If you'd like to make a comment to either one of us, you can reach Mike at myhauntlife.com or me at Russell, with 2 S's and 2 L's, at myhauntlife.com.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Russell.
Thanks for listening.
That didn't make sense to me because they had listed
English, mother. Do you speak it?